If we're right and the growth continues to accelerate in this space, we think that the the valuations will make sense longer term. So you really do have to have a longer term time horizon, which we do. We have a 5-year investment time horizon. I'm not saying there will never be any corrections. Of course there will, as many people worry, okay, is this too much too soon? But if our expectations for AI, especially embodied AI in the way that I just described, are correct, we are at the very beginning of, a technology revolution.
Cathie Wood is doubling down on what she believes is the most transformative technology cycle in modern financial history, and the market, she argues, still hasn't priced it correctly. While investors debate whether Qualcomm's surge signals peak AI euphoria, or the start of a competitive equilibrium with NVIDIA and AMD, Wood sees a broader paradigm shift. Her focus isn't just on software AI, she's emphasizing embodied AI, robotics, autonomous vehicles, humanoid automation, catalyzing real-world productivity, and fundamentally restructuring global labor and transportation. For Wood, this isn't speculative hype. It's the opening phase of a multi-year technological revolution where humanoid robotics could dwarf all other AI applications, including healthcare automation and personalized digital agents. Critics argue valuations are stretched, but Wood counters, if innovation compounds at the pace she models, current multiples may ultimately appear conservative. The market's problem isn't excess optimism, it's lack of imagination for exponential adoption curves.
Subscribe to Daily Bitcoin Trends for expert insights, real-time market updates, and proven crypto strategies. No hype, just smart analysis to help you make better decisions in crypto.
So Cathie, let's talk about what we're seeing in the markets right now, because I want your reaction first and foremost to this surge that we've seen in Qualcomm. It's going to be taking on the likes of NVIDIA and AMD. Your thesis is innovation. Do you welcome that pop? Is it just getting started? Where is it going from here?
Yes, I know a lot of people are worried about all the AI hype, but as we're looking to the future, especially with embodied AI, which is all about robotaxis and transforming the world of transportation completely, and then healthcare, which is probably one of the most profound applications of AI. We think that this investment will pay off, and I think the chaser is going to be humanoid robots. And I think that is going to be the biggest of all the embodied AI opportunities.
Well, Cathie, the concern in the market right now is that the pace of innovation doesn't necessarily justify the premiums that we're seeing for some of these names. How would you respond to that?
Yes, well, if we're right and the growth continues to accelerate in this space, we think that the the valuations will make sense longer term. So you really do have to have a longer term time horizon, which we do. We have a 5-year investment time horizon. I'm not saying there will never be any corrections. Of course there will, as many people worry, okay, is this too much too soon? But if our expectations for AI, especially embodied AI in the way that I just described, are correct, we are at the very beginning of, a technology revolution.
Is AI in a bubble right now?
I do not believe AI is in a bubble. What I do think is, on the enterprise side, it is going to take a while for large corporations to prepare themselves to transform. It's going to take a company like Palantir going into the largest enterprises and really restructuring them in order to really capitalize on the productivity gains that we think are going to be unleashed by AI. In the consumer space, the consumer loves all of this, and I think we're all looking forward to our personal assistants doing our shopping for us. Well, I am. As I talk to people around the world, some people love shopping, so they may not. But I am really excited about not just shopping, but how much my productivity as an individual is going to increase with AI. It already has in terms of research.
Let's just stress test this point, because you said that AI is not in a bubble, but you also flagged that there could be a correction risk. What's the timeline on that correction then, if you were to gaze into your crystal ball?
I think we're going to reach a moment in the next year where the conversation will shift from lower interest rates to rising rates, but it will be for a good reason. We think that the economy, the US and the rest of the world, of course, will participate, is going to move into a productivity-driven boom, just in time for our midterm elections. So I think when interest rates reverse, there will be a shudder, because there are a lot of people out there, and we saw this during COVID and its aftermath, who think that innovation and interest rates are inversely correlated. That is not true over history. Even in 2017, when interest rates went up, we had phenomenal performance. So I want to disabuse people of that notion, but nonetheless, the way algorithms work these days, we think that there will be a reality check, shall we say.
A reality check. Okay, so if we do come into this higher rate environment, as you're suggesting, then how should investors be thinking about allocating in the innovation space? Of course, we look at ARK up more than 50% YTD. Talk to me about some of the allocations you're making right now and this big bet on the future. Ultimately, what's going to pay off?
Well, one of the things we have focused on consistently is, really, this is going to sound almost silly, but we're focused on the future, and pure plays in the innovation space around robotics, energy storage, AI, blockchain technology, and especially multi-omic sequencing in the healthcare space. I think that's the most underestimated and underappreciated. So those are our 5 main areas. They involve 15 technologies, and we think they're converging to create really explosive growth opportunities.
What do you think has changed in the market that is rewarding your strategy again? Because I also think it's fair to say, since our last conversation in Abu Dhabi a couple of years ago, you've been through a pretty rough patch, right?
Yes, we went through a very rough patch. And in fact, during the 4 years prior to this administration, we were facing increasing regulation, a massive increase in interest rates, supply chain shocks, all of which impacted unit growth. And unit growth really drives innovation. And the faster units grow, the faster costs decline. And so we're through that. And more important, in this administration, we have with OB3, the One Big Beautiful Bill, massive tax changes that are going to take the effective corporate tax rate in the United States down to what we believe is 10%. Statutory will still be 21%, but with the accelerated depreciation, massive accelerated depreciation in manufacturing structures, equipment, domestic R&D, and software, we think that that is going to turbocharge innovation in a way that people do not appreciate right now. And that is one of the reasons we do believe we're moving into next year. We'll see this idea of a productivity-led boom in activity.
Not to get political here, but do you think the Trump administration deserves some credit for that as well?
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. They're very focused on deregulation, massive deregulation. We have a crypto and AI czar. Never have had that before. And they are focused on business-friendly policies, inviting more foreign direct investment into the United States, especially in the manufacturing realm. So the depreciation acceleration applies to manufacturing structures. This has never happened before. For the next 3 years, if a manufacturing structure is underway, its first year in service, during its first year in service, a company will be able to depreciate it 100% in year one, as opposed to over 30 to 40 years.
Right.
That's a massive tax cut.
Wood rejects the narrative that AI sits in bubble territory. Enterprise adoption lags, she concedes, because Fortune 500 digital transformation requires structural overhaul, and she sees Palantir as a key accelerant in that diffusion curve. Consumer AI adoption, meanwhile, is accelerating faster than historical tech cycles, already boosting productivity for early adopters. The correction risk she acknowledges isn't a structural unwind, but rather a sentiment shock tied to rate normalization. A temporary algorithm-driven pullback could occur once markets pivot from falling rates to rising rates, not because innovation slows, but because productivity gains will re-accelerate economic growth. Historically, innovation and rising rates can coexist when growth is real, 2017 being her reference case. In that environment, Wood sees small-cap innovation names and industrial AI plays breaking out, ending the mega-cap concentration regime and broadening market leadership. This isn't a liquidity trade. It's a productivity-driven economic expansion kickoff.
As we started this hour, Mike Santoli laid out how poor breath has been here as megacap tech has continued to lead the charge. Is that just the way we need to think about this market and how to be invested in this market at this point?
No, I think the market's going to broaden out because the economy is going to broaden back out. And so if you think about the past couple of years, the economy has been heavily bifurcated. So manufacturing, housing, small cap companies, lower income consumers, things that are harmed by rising rates have been harmed in the market. Compare and contrast that to the higher income consumer, which has a wealth effect going on, and the secular AI theme. And that's where you've seen a really narrow market for the past 2 years. In fact, it's the narrowest 2 years since 1998, 1999, when you had a similar backdrop. If AI does become what the analysts before were talking about in moving into the real economy, that's where I think you see the market broaden out into things like small caps, which are actually seeing rising earning estimates. And that's where I think lower rates possibly will help. And that's where I would expect people to remain diversified, because I do think you will move from a narrow market to one that is much more broad in the future, if history is any guide.
Malcolm, we have a growing list of strategists and analysts who think we're going to hit 7,000 on the S&P before year end. Are you one of those bulls?
I think it's very possible. I think considering what we're hearing right now and all the excitement that has ramped up over the last couple of weeks from all the deals OpenAI was striking, now you couple that with the day that NVIDIA has been having, and now we're finally about to get earnings from the most important 5 companies probably in all of the S&P over the next couple of days. I think that really could be the catalyst that pushes us across that mark before the year is over. And I really think that that AI narrative will continue for another couple of years now, especially if you take Jensen's timeline of 6 quarters, he called it, them showing that kind of revenue growth from just one product is indicative, I think, of the entire industry and the entire AI narrative continuing to carry.
Brent, I'm looking at your notes here, and you talk about the fact that there's less concern than you can really ever remember in your career about what appears to be a weakening and slowing labor market. What is the data that you are watching right now, and how much of a concern is this as we talk about a broadening market amid a broadening economy?
Yeah, that's where I think the broadening occurs regardless of longer term. I guess the question is, do you have a hiccup between now and then? And the labor market before when we had jobs reports was down to a 27,000 average pace. And I know people talk about immigration, but that doesn't explain why the labor differential in the Conference Board, for example, people are suggesting jobs are harder to find. If you look at the University of Michigan survey, the people worried about more unemployment in the future is at levels that it hasn't been before without a possible contraction. And that's where I just think we kind of create these narratives on Wall Street about things continuing forever and when not to worry about things. And I think just right now, when you've seen this narrowing of the labor market, for example, less than half the industries have been hiring the last 4 months when we had jobs reports in that labor market report. That's where I think people need to be just a bit concerned right now about what is happening in that labor market, and does that filter into the broader economy and cause some sort of a pullback in the future.
Malcolm Etheridge, on the other hand, argues the past 2-year tech narrowness was driven by rate shocks, supply chain disruptions, and regulatory friction, constraints that temporarily slowed unit growth and cost declines. Now she believes the policy regime shift, accelerated depreciation, pro-investment tax incentives, deregulation, and crypto AI-friendly governance marks the beginning of America's industrial renaissance. According to her thesis, this policy tech convergence supercharges capital formation in robotics, energy storage, multiomics, and blockchain. As innovation accelerates across 15 converging technologies, she sees a broadening market, with manufacturing, housing, and small caps pulling forward alongside big tech. Weak labor data clouds sentiment, but Wood argues productivity-driven expansion offsets employment softening, driving a new growth regime rather than contraction. For investors, she stresses pure-play exposure to frontier technologies and a 5-year horizon. Her message is clear: we are not late, we are early, and the inflection point is imminent.